Welcome back to the program. Now, image is everything, and that's what marketing experts will tell you all the time.
Well, that applies to branding a country as well. In the competitive global village, a nation needs to project an image that will attract foreign investments and, of course, tourists.
Well, earlier this year, South Korean President Lee Myung-bak launched a new council to improve the country's brand value, and the council is tasked with spearheading campaigns and initiatives that will revive the country's image abroad.
And today we have the man who's been asked to lead the line, the chairman of the Presidential Council on Nation Branding with us, Professor Yoon-dae. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. So let's start by exploring this concept of nation branding. What exactly is nation branding?
Woman in the home is more powerful. Also, soft power in the public diplomacy is more important. Likewise, and the country's image is more important than economic, even diplomatic, even military power. So Korea has become the nation which has been transformed from recipient of aid to the donor of aid. As you know, in 1950s, per capita income of Korea was only 1,000. Now we have 20,000 and providing a lot of assistance to neighboring countries. So we just want the country, our people, be loved by other nations. That's the purpose of our mission.
Well, in the past few decades, I mean, the country Korea has really progressed a lot and changed quite a bit. But what do you think is the perception and the image of Korea today? And what are the things that needs to be changed, do you think?
Korea has become multicultural country. If we look at the marriage, we have a lot of intermarriage. 4 out of 10 countryside marriage are inter-race. So that until recent years, because Korea has become the country where we have been controlled by, in a sense, Japanese, so that we try to, show the image that Korea is independent and culturally sort of monocentric oriented country. But everything has been globalized. We have a lot of multicultural in Korea, and even the Korean products. In case of Samsung, around 80% of Korean products sold internationally. So that unless we learn how to live in this global society, unless we understand ourselves how to adjust to culture, Korean cannot be global citizenship. We just won't change it. That's very important.
There's a lot of link, isn't it? I mean, when you talk about intermarriages, it's also, I think, a factor that Koreans are also going abroad more. You go to the US, you see a lot of Koreans. You come to Singapore, you see a lot of Koreans. And also when you talk about the brands such as Samsung and Hyundai, people will think Korea sometimes. And people, when you think of Korea, they also think of these brands. So do you think that that dynamic exists as well?
It exists. However, one of the problems for Korean is that even though a lot of international consumers know very well about the image of Samsung or image of LG or Hyundai Motor Company, but unfortunately, we have surveyed that only 1 out of 10 people among American university students consider Samsung is Korean brand. They consider 5 out of 10 students consider those are Japanese one. So there is the gap between the image of Korea and then gap of Korean multinationals brands one. So somehow we try to reduce the gap also.
So it seems like the corporate brands of Korea are far ahead of the country image itself, and your council has been tasked to turn that around so that the image of Korea also, goes up a level. How are you going to tackle that? What are the kind of initiatives that you have launched?
Yeah, in that matter, we cannot do anything because we cannot say Samsung or Hyundai Motor Company or LG a Korean one, because they think if we try to do that, they think that's demarketing their product rather than promoting the one. So instead of doing that, we try to improve our identity itself. by providing, as I mentioned, assistance to foreign countries. In terms of volunteer, for example, American and Japanese are sending a lot of volunteer internationally, and Korea is number 3rd in the world in sending those volunteers. And last year we have sent more than 2,000 volunteers to 58 countries. We are try to increase the number to 3,500 in this year. By doing that, we don't care about ranking, but Korea will become 2nd in the world. And also last month, we provided our knowledge of economic development to Vietnam. We had the Vietnam-Korea Week. During that time, we have a lot of seminars about economic development, and those technical assistance is basically based on demand coming from those countries.
So such measures have been put in place because you know, Korea is extending its goodwill, its influence as well, and you know, with the volunteer activities to create this image that you know, Korea is helpful, no more donor recipient, and we are in the position to help others. But when you talk about Korea in the political arena, a lot of people, when they think about it, even recently we had a naval clash, you know, between South and North Korea. They think of violent protests, they think of military tension. How do we maneuver around that?
We cannot maneuver that one unless we improve the relationship between North and South. And actually, Korean is not known to European people because Korea is known through Korean War. So that generally speaking, the image of Korea to American and Western people is not so good, except as you mentioned, the relationship with North and South. However, you know, Korea has become one of 20 countries by hosting G20 next year, November. And in that respect, Korea has become respected by other people. And really, Korea tried to become the middleman between developed country and developing countries. So we try to get information or wants from developing country to show international community. So we are really proud of being the country of one of G20, and even Korea has become the host country of G20.
Well, it seems like, you know, nation branding is a long process, but we're on good track. And thank you very much for sharing the details with us. South Korea trying to be a more responsible member in the international community, of course, and all. Thanks joining us today, Professor Yoon-dae, Chairman of the Presidential Council on Nation Branding, on how South Korea is reviving its national image to the world. But I have to say, the soft power is really strong with all the, you know, cultural exchanges, Korean dramas and movies, and you know.
And we haven't even talked about, you know, the Olympics, technology. You know, we haven't even talked about, you know, the impact of the Olympics and the World Cup it had, you know, on the world. So, you know, it's a very interesting subject there.